Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. On Little People Big World, viewers saw Amy and Matt go through a divorce. However, they had actually been separated for some time. Amy wanted to start dating again but felt insecure about her height. In season 16, she confides in a friend that she was worried about her height as she considered dating once again after being married for so long. Amy found it difficult to start dating again. However, she eventually went to a paint and sip singles event and met Chris, who she didn't initially connect with. But over time, they developed a relationship and got married after 6 years of dating. The couple is beloved by fans but recently had a difficult Christmas celebration. Amy left Chris home and went out to celebrate her special holiday tradition. Amy had a delightful Christmas celebration with her husband Mark and her family. The Little People Big World reality star enjoyed spending the holiday season with her children and grandchildren and has fond memories of past Christmas celebrations with her children. She is now able to visit her grandchildren and create new memories during this special time of year. However, Annie is not ready for the holidays to end and resists taking down her decorations. Even after the decorations are put away, she will continue to feel the holiday joy throughout the year. Annie has had a wonderful year filled with numerous trips and experiences of love every day, not just during the holiday season. In addition to celebrating her first wedding anniversary with Mark, Amy Roloff also had one more special Christmas tradition to complete. She left Chris at home and went out with her friend Lisa to enjoy some traditional Christmas happiness. The two women had drinks together and celebrated the holiday season and their friendship. Amy considers Lisa to be a wonderful addition to her life as they have known each other for a long time, and Lisa has been a supportive presence in both good and bad times. As she looks ahead to the future beyond 2023, Amy is grateful for the special relationships and memories she has made during the holiday season. When Amy returned home from her outing with Lisa, she was surprised to find that the electricity in her home had gone out. Mark had been waiting for her in the dark by the fireplace and was surprised that Amy was unaware of the power outage since she had been out drinking. It was unclear when the electricity would come back on or what had caused the power cut. Despite the unexpected circumstances, Amy joined Chris in the dark and they waited together for the power to be restored. It seems likely that Amy and Chris will have many more adventures in the coming year. Despite not being able to watch the latest episode of their reality TV show due to the power outage, Amy and Chris made the most of their time together by the fireplace. They took the opportunity to spend quality time together and enjoy each other's company. The couple recently celebrated their one-year wedding anniversary by visiting Italy. Amy and Chris first connected in 2016 and got engaged 3 years later in September 2019. Their love for each other is evident to all, and we wish them many more years of happiness together. The soft, flickering glow from the fireplace painted dancing shadows across the living room, transforming the familiar space into a realm of hushed intimacy. The persistent hum of the refrigerator, the gentle whir of the central heating, the faint glow of digital clocks, all the usual background symphonies of a modern home were absent, replaced by the crackle of burning wood and the rhythm of their shared breathing. For Amy and Chris, the power outage, initially an inconvenience, had become an unexpected gift, a forced pause from the noise of the world and their own reality TV show. "It's strange, isn't it?" Amy murmured, her head resting comfortably on Chris's shoulder. "Without all the distractions, you can actually hear yourself think." Chris chuckled, the sound a low, comforting rumble in his chest. "I was just thinking the same thing. No TV, no phones buzzing. Just us. It's like we've been teleported back in time." He tightened his arm around her. "I could get used to this." Their conversation meandered, much like the smoke curling up from the logs. They spoke of their recent trip to Italy, reminiscing about the sun-drenched vineyards of Tuscany and the ancient winding streets of Rome. They had celebrated their one-year wedding anniversary there, a milestone that felt both incredibly new and wonderfully established. "You know," Amy said, her voice thoughtful, "when I was on that paint and sip date all those years ago, terrified about my height and whether anyone would ever see past it, I never could have imagined this. A second chance at love felt like a distant dream." Chris looked down at her, his face softened by the firelight. "And I almost didn't go to that event. A friend had to drag me. Said I was becoming a hermit. Guess I owe him one. Their meeting had been anything but a storybook instant connection. Amy, fresh from the very public dissolution of her long-term marriage to Matt, had felt exposed and vulnerable. Chris, more reserved and cautious, hadn't been looking for a whirlwind. Their first conversation was awkward, filled with the stilted small talk of two people who were deeply out of practice. But a seed was planted. It was in the follow-up coffee dates, the long walks where they spoke not of their pasts, but of their hopes, for travel, for peace, for a life that was authentically theirs, that the foundation of their relationship was slowly, carefully laid. The 6 years of dating that followed were a deliberate choice. They were both older, wiser, and carried the baggage of previous lives. They needed that time to build trust, to integrate their families, and to ensure that when they did marry, it was for all the right reasons. Their wedding day, therefore, wasn't a beginning, but a celebration of a partnership that had already been tempered by time and understanding. The fire began to die down, and Chris moved to add another log. As the flames leapt back to life, casting a new wave of warmth through the room, their talk turned to the future, beyond the cozy confines of this unexpected evening. "I've been thinking about the farm," Amy said, a tentative note in her voice. Roloff Farms was more than just a piece of land. It was the backdrop to her entire adult life, the set of their show, and the source of both her greatest joys and most profound heartaches. Chris, now sitting facing her, nodded encouragingly. "What about it? With the kids all having their own paths now, and Matt and I, well, our chapter there is closed. It feels like it's time to fully define what our legacy is, Chris. Not as part of the farm, but as us." She gestured around the dark room. "This house is our home. But I think we need a project, a shared dream that's entirely ours." A spark of excitement lit in Chris's eyes. "I've had an idea, but I didn't want to push. You know how I love to build things." Before his relationship with Amy, Chris had worked in landscaping and had a passion for hands-on creation. What if we started our own venture? Something small at first. A community garden project, or even a little workshop where we could build custom furniture together. You have the eye for design and the heart for connecting with people. I have the brawn to make it happen. The idea hung in the air, tangible and electric. It was a world away from the high-drama, tractor-filled storylines of Little People Big World. It was quieter, more personal, and utterly theirs. They spent the next hour brainstorming, their voices rising with enthusiasm as they sketched out vague plans in the dim light. They talked about potential names, about partnering with local charities to teach woodworking to underprivileged kids, about creating beautiful, handcrafted pieces that would outlast them. The power outage had not only given them a night of quality time, but it acted as a catalyst, pushing them to dream aloud in a way they hadn't allowed themselves to before. The morning after and moving forward. The power finally flickered back on around 2 a.m., the sudden blaze of lights and beeping of appliances a jarring return to the 21st century. Blinking in the brightness, Amy and Chris looked at each other and laughed. The spell was broken, but the connection forged in the darkness remained. The following days were filled with a new sense of purpose. Amy, feeling reinvigorated after her heartfelt Christmas outing with Lisa and the transformative night with Chris, decided to channel her energy into a new project. She began drafting a proposal for a memoir, one that would go beyond the scope of the television show. It would be a story of rebuilding, not just about finding love after divorce, but about reclaiming her identity outside of being Matt's wife or a little person on TV. It would be about the quiet struggles of self-doubt, the courage it takes to open your heart again, and the joy of discovering a partnership built on mutual respect and deep friendship. Chris, meanwhile, began cleaning out the garage, transforming it into a makeshift workshop. The scent of sawdust and the sound of sanding became the soundtrack to their afternoons. He started small, building a beautiful, solid oak picture frame for their favorite wedding photo from Italy. It was a symbolic first step. Amy would often sit with him, a cup of tea in hand, offering suggestions or simply enjoying the focused silence of his work. It was a dynamic that suited them perfectly, his quiet craftsmanship complemented by her warm, social nature. A few weeks later, they decided to host a small dinner party. The guest list was intimate: Amy's children, Jeremy, Zach, Molly, and Jacob, along with their partners and children. It was the first time they were hosting a major family gathering in their own home, separate from the farm. The air was thick with a mix of nostalgia and new beginnings. As the grandchildren ran through the halls, their laughter echoing, Amy watched from the kitchen, her heart full. She saw Zach and Tori chatting easily with Chris about his new workshop, and Jeremy admiring the Italy photos now displayed in Chris's handmade frame. There were still complex layers to their family dynamics. The ghost of the past was never far, but in this moment, in her home with her husband, she felt a sense of peace and consolidation that had been a long time coming. Later, as the party wound down, her son Jacob pulled her aside. "You seem different, Mom. Lighter. It's good to see." Amy squeezed his hand. "I feel different, Jacob. It took a long time to get here, but I finally feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Embracing a public-private life. The new season of Little People Big World began filming, and for the first time, Amy felt a renewed sense of control over her narrative. The cameras captured their new projects: Amy writing her book proposal, Chris in his workshop building a dining table for their home. They filmed a segment where Amy and Lisa hosted a Holiday in July fundraiser for a local women's shelter, using the event as an excuse to put up decorations again, much to Annie's delight. The show began to reflect not just the drama of a family, but the purposeful, chosen life of a couple in their prime. The producers were initially hesitant about the shift away from the farm-centric drama, but audiences responded positively. Viewers wrote in, expressing how inspired they were by Amy's journey of self-discovery and the couple's mature, supportive relationship. They saw a love that wasn't about grand, televised gestures, but about building a bookshelf together, supporting each other's individual passions, and sitting quietly by the fire when the world went dark. One episode focused on the anniversary of Amy's father's passing. It was a vulnerability she had often shielded from the cameras. This year, however, she and Chris visited his grave together. Chris, who had never met the man, stood quietly as Amy shared stories, her voice thick with emotion. He didn't try to fix her grief. He simply held her hand, his presence a steady anchor. That segment, raw and unvarnished, resonated deeply with fans, proving that the most compelling reality television often isn't about conflict, but about authentic human connection. Looking to the horizon. As fall began to paint the Oregon landscape in shades of gold and crimson, Amy and Chris took a weekend trip to the coast. Walking along the misty beach, the roar of the Pacific a constant companion, they reflected on the whirlwind that had been the past year. "We did it," Amy said, her hand tucked securely in his. "We survived a difficult Christmas, a power outage that turned into a blessing, launching new projects. We've built a real life, Chris." "And we're just getting started," he replied, smiling. "The Community Garden Project has its first council approval meeting next month. And your book proposal has garnered serious interest. Our adventures are just changing shape." They stopped to watch the sunset, the sky blazing with orange and purple. Amy thought about the long and winding road that had led her to this moment, the pain of her divorce, the fear of being alone, the insecurity about her height, the joy of finding a true partner, and the peace of building a home. Her life was no longer defined by what she had lost, but by what she